I failed more than any other person, I think. I've been homeless. I've been financially independent. I counted more than 4 times. And I was really embarrassed that I lost it all.
My guest today is Lyubim Kogan, a 5-time first-generation immigrant. He's a Winter Olympian, a 9/11 survivor, and the founder of wingsforheroes.org.
My first experience of immigrating was back in '92, and it's 1 year after the Soviet Union fell apart. I was 17 years old, and we went to the United States from Ukraine.
How did your early experiences as a 5-time first-generation immigrant shape your approach to this kind of leadership and this kind of adaptation to your circumstances?
The way I progressed was because I really embraced all the opportunity. And I tell everybody, I had 2 dreams. One was mine and one was my father's. And my dream was to ski and to go to the Olympics. And my dad's was that I go to a great business school. I commuted minimum 600 miles every weekend so I could ski.
I want to ask you this. When you found your passion and what you want to continue to, you went and you found wingsforheroes.org.
Yes.
Run me through why, what you do, and what are you aiming for with this?
Wings for Heroes, it is such a huge project. Look at Ukraine right now. It's a terrible war.
Yes.
And I think the reason I am not there because, I kept going all the time. And I actually was one of the fortunate ones who got so good in what I was doing and so tough that when the chance came for me to help other people, I said yes. But if I check out now, I don't have any regrets that I didn't go after that big goal or I didn't try. I failed more than any other person, I think. I've been homeless. I've been financially independent. I counted more than 4 times. And I was really embarrassed that I lost it all. But then I read
Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. My guest today is Lyubim Kogan, a 5-time first-generation immigrant born and raised in the former Soviet Union. He's a Winter Olympian, a 9/11 survivor, and the founder of wingsforheroes.org, as you see on his shirt. A nonprofit that helps wounded veterans reclaim joy and dignity through flight, and quite literally. We'll get to that in a moment. He's led clients through the 2008 financial crisis without a single net loss, co-authored a bestseller with Steve Forbes, Successonomics, and spoke at the United Nations with his mentor, the famous motivational speaker and author Brian Tracy. In 2015, a decade ago, Lyubim returned to Ukraine to rebuild war-torn infrastructure, running a failing national company with no paycheck, no roadmap, and no margin for error. Lyubim's journey is one of resilience, ethical leadership, and turning personal success into service. An interesting fact, Lyubim is the first ever full-time NYU Stern student to qualify for the Olympic Games, showcasing exceptional dedication and ability to excel in multiple arenas simultaneously. Without further ado, hello Lyubim and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues.
Hi, Ali. Thank you for having me, and thank you for such a nice introduction. I thought you were talking about somebody else at some point.
No, it's all facts and truth on Google's first page. So yes, this is you, Lyubim.
Thank you.
Now, I want to start early on because I always believe history shaped us, and our personal history really shaped us. So your journey spans continents, crises, and careers, and I can kind of relate to that because I've spanned continents and careers and some crises, not to your levels, but this is why I'm excited and interested about hearing this. How did your early experiences as a 5-time first-generation immigrant shape your approach to this kind of leadership and this kind of adaptation to your circumstances? And before you start, what I'd like you to start with is, what does a 5-time first-generation immigrant actually mean for the people who've never migrated?
Okay. Basically, it means that you pack up your belongings and you move to another country and you become a legal resident. And my own minimum was I lived in the country for a year or more. So I moved to 5 different countries and I actually legally resided in those countries.
Okay, so now let's get to it. From childhood.
From childhood, my first experience of immigrating was back in '92, and it's 1 year after the Soviet Union fell apart. I was 17 years old, and we went to the United States from Ukraine. I think that the interesting thing was that I grew up during the Cold War, so late '70s, early '80s, and my picture of the United States was that Ronald Reagan, who was the president then, he's sitting in his office and there is the red button and he can hit that button at any time and we are done. And that's pretty much all I knew because, the outside world was completely shut off and living inside of Soviet Union, it was like, it was the brainwashing and propaganda. They used to ask us to bring money for peace fund and all that money went, into covering the shortages in budget for the amount of armory they were making. My childhood was spent in the background of Afghanistan war. It started when I was 5 years old and it finished when I was almost 16. So throughout my life, growing up, I kind of had this thing in the back of my mind that I may get drafted and sent to die in Afghanistan. And growing up, you see a lot of people coming back injured, coming back in caskets, and it was all over the place. So one day, my dad came home and he said, "We are going." I said, "When?" He said, "We're going in 3 hours." I said, "Where?" He said, "The United States." And I said, "For how long?" And he said, "Forever." And that
Wow.
was just a few months after I graduated from high school. I knew that we were going to leave, but early '90s, the former Soviet Union, especially Ukraine, it was chaos. And if somebody found out that a family was moving outside of
Mm,
Ukraine and they were immigrating, you became a target
yes.
because you sell everything, you cash out and you're sitting on bags and you're taking your belongings and whatever money you could get and you're leaving forever. So in our family, it was done really quietly. And, I'm 17 years old. I'm still skiing. I just graduated from high school. For me, skiing was a lot more important than going to school at that time. So I packed up a bag. I took my ski boots. I took my jumping suit and a helmet. I wore my training suit and I didn't even have socks. I remember flying on the plane and I didn't have socks. I had running shoes, but I had no socks. And, some people come to the States with $7, $8. I came with my training suit and I knew one thing about the States by then that 1930 and 1932 and 1980 Olympic Games were in Lake Placid, New York, and that's where I was going. So I came to New Jersey, and my uncle called a lot of different ski schools, and we went to the different ski schools. And the National Sports Academy in Lake Placid, which I don't think exists anymore, they gave me a full scholarship that I could go. I can, live there. I can eat. I can train. I can learn English. And it was just, yeah, come. And that was my first experience with American people, and in my mind, that Americans are the most generous people. I happened to meet so many wonderful people, and they helped me all along. So my first experience was moving into a completely unknown place, but I got lucky. I got lucky that I got to live with Americans right away. I dove into the culture. I learned the language. I did not try to assimilate with my own people. So for me, I think the way I progressed was because I really embraced all the opportunity. And I tell everybody, I had two dreams. One was mine and one was my father's. And my dream was to ski and to go to the Olympics. And my dad's was that I go to a great business school. So, the
Yes.
only issue with that was that, great business school in this case was in New York City and skiing was in Lake Placid. And actually, you mentioned that I was the first person to qualify for the Olympics out of Stern. I commuted minimum 600 miles every weekend so I could ski. And that was pretty exciting. I think back, I don't know how I did it, but I guess I really wanted to go. Yeah.
When there's a will, there's a way, right?
Absolutely.
When there's a
Absolutely.
will,
It
there's a way.
was, just really, really briefly, I figured out that, okay, I can only take classes from Monday to Thursday. Thursday after my last class, I changed and I went to the bus station on 42nd Street. And then I took the bus to Albany, New York. And from Albany, I drove my car to Lake Placid. And then if we didn't have any competitions, I would come back on Sunday night. But if it was during the season and we would go all over the East Coast, then I would be on the bus in the morning, coming back from Maine or Vermont or from somewhere else and studying on the bus, which I learned to do, really fast. So yeah, that was really, really, if there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
Definite life example.
Yes, you are, definitely. Like so many successful people, it generally is a story that you want to share with others. And it's a story that for me, the sharing of it is not as important as the impact it should make to people. Because when you hear a story like this and you think to yourself, you know, or many stories like yours, so many professional hockey players today, basketball players, or any sport, they a lot of people have the funds, they have the access, they have the security to get in an ice rink or go to play football with their friends or anything, but they don't. Right? They're just wasting their days, wasting their times, or anything else, and then they look around and they think it's your height or it's your weight or it's whatever luck it is, or pure talent that you are born with, some innate talent to be a skier. But there is no such thing. Nobody's born a skier. It's the 600 miles that you're willing to go and come back and suffer through all of this, because you weren't going on a private helicopter to the slope and coming back, right? I mean,
You're going on the bus.
you see, like, you are on a bus with all equipment and all these things, and like, it's just not that easy, right? And of course, you weren't also the wealthiest child, so you weren't getting like the top notch of everything else that there was all the time at the beginning. So, putting all those things together, when you look back or you hear or you watch documentaries or anything about people just like you, and you think, wow, when I started playing tennis, the first thing I did is spend $1,000 on all the equipment and the shoes and the look and the best racket that the celebrity plays with, and the ranked people play with. I cannot play unless it's Federer's racket. And then you go and you see the real people who are playing. They don't have access to any of this, but they have the will, the drive, the want to really reach, and that's what it takes. The heart is the first key. So that's what I'm going to take from your whole life and your adaptability early on, which we'll come back to in other parts of your life. But I noticed from what you said, you immersed yourself in the American culture, and for
Yes.
that first generation of kids who came exactly from what you're saying, because I know friends of mine, whether in New York or Toronto, who a lot of them Ukrainian, when they would tell me about the impact of moving to Canada or the US from Ukraine, right after, the same as you, right after, the fall of the empire, it kind of reminds me of what they said, and they were all fearful coming over, because they thought, like you said, any minute the American president would just hit that red button, like you see in so many caricatures and movies of the time. Even James Bond and even Western movies, they always had that red button with the Russians and whatnot, and that fear and everything that goes in. But you moved, and instead of moving into Little Odessa or any of those kind of cultural places and just staying within, like you said, the people, and not really branching or embracing what America offers, essentially, you actually went and did that. You said, let me see what this offers. Let me push myself into that space, which is very key, I think, to even immigration policy today, because we're going to have a lot more immigrants with climate change issues and the stuff that's going on around the world, the displacements. I mean, we're talking, almost 1 billion people moving around. When you look at those numbers, you can't have 100 million people move into New York City or into London or Paris, because they all want to move into the centers too, because that's where they find
Yes.
some kind of culture, they're not moving into the small little towns and the outskirts. And so it's going to be really difficult if everybody comes in and decides, I want my country here again. Right. And that's
Mhm.
what we're seeing happening, kind of. So it's really amazing that you come from a space that your success partly is because you were able to quickly notice the differences and the benefits and how you can integrate into this system and really take advantage of it. Even your scholarship, even getting to the Olympics, it was all because you embraced the new. You learned that, hey, in America, if I'm a good skier, somebody's going to give me an opportunity to be the best. They're going to invest in me to
Yes.
be the best.
And that's a very good point, Ali, because if you think about, if we compare two systems, let's take the Soviet system and the American system. I got expelled from every grade but the eighth grade. And the reason I did not get expelled from the eighth grade because I came after the year started and I left after the year ended. It was 1 year when I knew I really wanted to ski, but I did not qualify for we had a special school. It's called School for the Olympic Reserves, where you went and all you did, you were training. So I went from mathematics school to like a holding area. And then at the end of the year, I transferred. But when I came to the States, I became the best student, meaning like I just excelled in everything because I could study the things that were interesting to me. I was not forced in wasting my time and understanding things that I thought I would never need. So here I am. I have a choice to do what I want to do. And the system is really supportive. Like, for example, my first experience of going into American school, it was class of 5 people because we were a little ski school in upstate New York. And in that class, you have people of different ages, somebody, meaning like somebody is in the like 10th grade, somebody is in 11th grade, and somebody is a senior. And we are doing math. There are different levels, but one teacher. And I have somebody who's in the graduating class. He's like step above the arithmetics, where I'm sitting here crunching numbers, doing calculus. And I really honestly thought there was something wrong with this guy. And then I found out that that guy is actually brilliant in something else. I think he's trying with either languages or some kind of science that didn't require any math. So they let him excel and he got accepted in a really good school. So to me, seeing that was like, wow, really? And I'll share this with you. My dad says, Lyubim, for a guy with no particular talents, you've done exceptionally well. So I don't really have any talents except I am relentless. If I'm going after something, I will not stop. I mean, I will go until the end. And I think that is my strength. If I feel like the cause is important, then I just take the next step. And that's one thing. I just do one step at a time towards my goal. And then 10 years, 20 years. Now I'm counting in 30 years, but okay, you know, I do get there, but
Mm-hmm.
not on my schedule. So one thing that is important for everybody who's listening to us, my goal is to inspire people because I've done all this work alone and it's a really lonely and difficult road to travel. But once you get to a goal that you've been working on for like 10 years, 15 years, and you're there, it's like the satisfaction, the feeling of accomplishment. If somebody experienced that once in a lifetime, it's worth living for.
100% true. And I think that is the talent that people should work towards, as opposed to working towards the talents of the actual, say, sport or activity that they're chasing. So, again, if you want to be the best basketball player, it doesn't that much matter if you are really talented at basketball or you've picked it up really quickly. But what matters more is what you said, the relentlessness of it. Because Michael Jordan, I mean, the poor guy got kicked out, right? I mean, he didn't make it to the team. I mean, you're talking about the greatest of all time. He didn't make it to
High
the team.
school, he didn't make it in high school. And I was
Exactly.
thinking about him to say that it's perfect that you brought him. He practiced more than anybody else.
Exactly.
He was the best, not because he was so talented. He
Right.
was nonstop. And
Right.
another person is Jerry Rice.
Yes.
Jerry Rice, every time he got the ball, I'm not a football fan. And I don't really, haven't, but I know that guy that every time he got the ball, he says, every time these hands get the ball, those feet, they're going to be, cross the
Yes.
touchdown line.
Yes. And that's like, that's the mentality, right? That's the goal. And when you take that relentlessness and you add it with the talent that comes from the repetition and the exercise and all of that, and then you put into it that, that discipline that you have and all of these people have, you essentially, I mean, even Kobe Bryant, speaking of basketball, I mean, that whole Mamba mentality is that. That's
Yes.
what it is. It's
Yes.
he came into practice and he practiced harder, and we only see the limelight. We only see the end results. We see you
Exactly.
jumping off of that ledge, right? You're flying in the air. We see that moment on camera. We don't see any of the stuff that happened before. We don't see the amount of time you broke your bones. We don't see anything. We only see that 5 seconds. And then we're like, oh,
Yes.
he's so talented and he made it this far or whatever it is, right? And that's all we see. And then we shut off the TVs and we go back. If we only took a moment to say, how much effort did that take? And how do I apply that mentality and model into my life so that I could be an Olympic athlete in my field? Think of the Olympics as whatever you do, right? Think of it as an Olympics and say, what does Lyubim do to get there that I can do to get to that level within my space, within my
May
passion?
I, can I answer that
Yeah.
question? Because it sounds like a direct question. Um, I always say that I have two compasses. One is in my mind, it's in my head, and another compass is in my heart. You can say, it's in your gut, but for me, it comes somewhere from my heart. So when I have when my heart compass says, like this feeling, I really want to do this. It would be great if I was, you fill in the blank. And here I'm a little kid. It would be like, oh, it would be really cool if I had could wear that Olympic uniform and I could walk at the Olympic parade. You don't even think when you're little, you don't think about, I didn't think about which sport it would be. It was just the idea, like it looks so cool. And I saw when 1980s Olympics where I saw the Olympic torch carried by, and it's like I was 5 years old and I still remember it. We were standing on the street. It was just such a big deal. So let's say your heart compass says, I have to do this. I want to do this. But then your head compass says, oh, don't do this. It will take so much time. You will have to go through this and that. And it just so your mind starts talking you out of that. And that's where a lot of people stop. So the first thing that I think that you need to realize is that like you really need to feel it in you, in your fibers. And it's something that has to come up. It's not a verbal signal. Like to me, I learned to recognize it because I've been, working on myself my entire life. And if I get that, even that little feeling like it excites me, I will investigate more. And when you investigate more and you really find out, oh, wow, this thing really challenges me on all different levels, not just like on the physical level, like I can get lost in this thing. This is what I want to do. Then you think about what you have to do. Yes, in me, I make a commitment that I would do it, no matter what it takes. And then I see what needs to be done. So, if we go follow my steps, I'd say if I really feel that drive, then I decide I'm doing it. And then the next thing I will do whatever it takes for me to get there. And that means being willing to look at the ceiling when you break something and you just say, look, I broke this collarbone 6 times, just one collarbone. And you can go concussions, legs, all of it. It's just part of the deal. If you play sports, competitive sports, you will get hurt and it will take time. So I am investing my effort and my time and I am doing what I really want to do because I need to do it here. Another thing that really helps me, I think that, we had a lot of people in history who walked the path before the one that we're trying to walk. And one of the people who is really influential for me personally is Steve Jobs. Not because he created, we all know Apple. I am using iPhone. I'm on my iPad. I'm talking to you. That's the technology that they use. But he was really clearly aware of his limited time on this planet.
Yes.
He always talks about two things. Number one is that I wake up every morning. I look in the mirror and I say, do I like what I'm doing? And he says, if the answer is 2 days in a row, no, then I am really considering doing something else. The second thing is that, the imagining yourself on the dying bed, it's your last breath. You cannot do another thing. And then running a financial practice, I was privileged in meeting hundreds of families. And Ali, one thing I know is that this life ends really fast and we don't even know. Like people can spend 40, 50 years planning on what they will do when they retire. I had some wonderful people who met when they were teenagers, high school sweethearts. They got married, they had a kid, and then we were talking about, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. And then they go on with this career, was difficult at the beginning. Then they, move up the corporate ladder and they acquire a very substantial retirement account. And then he dies or he has a stroke. Normally, most of the time, it's men who are the first. It's rare that women, but sometimes it happens to women. But imagine 50 years waiting for something to happen and you just can't do it anymore because life is over. So for me, I really have that fear of like being on my dying bed and thinking, oh man, I should have done something. And I hope it doesn't happen for a long time. But if I check out now, I don't have any regrets that like I didn't go after that big goal or I didn't try. I failed more than any other person, I think. I've been homeless. I've been financially independent. I counted more than 4 times. And I was really embarrassed that I lost it all. But then I read autobiography of Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He was out 4 times. And we're talking about the guy who spent his whole life interviewing the most successful people in history. He was writing war bonds for the Second World War. He was the guy who wrote for the American public and he raised money to finance World War II. Everybody knows him, right? But it's life. And I think when we get to a goal and it's taken away, it's just because we're not done yet. And I remember I lived my last year in the States in 2015 before I went back to Ukraine. I lived on Lake Dillon up in over 3,000 feet, right? I have 5 best ski resorts and 40 minutes skiing from me. My practice is running beautifully. I show up like 2 or 3 times. Everything was running. My work was minimal. And I would sit there and I look at this beautiful stuff and say, I am done. But if I stopped there, then Wings for Heroes would not exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have a chance to save lives, So I am saying that sometimes we lose everything because the universe had a very different plan for us and we are not at the place of retirement. So for anybody who has lost everything and you're starting over, hey, it's okay. It's just part of life. Just embrace it. You learn a valuable lesson. You're stronger now than you were before. You're much more experienced because, the life experience, you cannot get it from books. We need technical training, but when you go out there, it's totally different. So start over, move forward. Another thing is that,
yeah, I appreciate everything you just said there because I'll tell you this. I was born in privilege and I went to school and I finished my education. And when I finished my education, I didn't want to rely on that privilege or go back home. And so I had about 18,000 Canadian dollars at the time to my name. And I thought the only thing I know how to do in my life with all my education, because I couldn't get a job because I was overqualified educationally and I had no experience, was trade currency. And the only reason I knew how to trade currency is not because I was in Forex, because I was a kid still, but it was because I traveled so much with my family. And, if you remember 30, 40 years ago, I mean, there were traveler's checks and things like that, but credit cards weren't big, and you exchanged money all the time, everywhere you went. And especially in Europe, every country you went through, from French franc to Swiss franc to Dutch mark to British pound, everybody had their own currency, right? So you were constantly bargaining. It was like the bazaar. Like, you're constantly bargaining for rates and prices and all those things, and it made a big difference when you exchanged a lot of money. So I'd grown up learning this trade sort of from my dad in exchange. And so I took the $18,000. I started trading. One thing led to another. My fund grew to 3 billion US dollars. Yeah.
Wow.
Something that's, well,
Amazing, man. Something,
the
what
other
a
part.
surprise.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. And you know what? I was so unhappy. I was so unhappy when I reached that level, because other than the actual money, there was nothing else that spoke from my heart, like you said. Everything was speaking from here. I was in a relationship that was for the business. I had clients just like you who were in the top, 0.5% of New York and Toronto society. And so, um, for example, they wouldn't invite me to their kid's birthday or personal stuff. And then somebody told me, you know why you don't get invited? I said, why? They said, because you're a good looking young guy and you're fun and you're single. They're never going to let you around their
Mm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
Settle down and you'll get invited and you'll move ahead in
Mm-hmm.
your business, right? What do? No heart. I find somebody who matches the criteria that's required to be invited into those galas and places. I check that box perfectly. She fits the box perfectly. What happens? More doors open.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a relationship that I don't care. I'm buying things I don't want. I'm going places I don't like, all for some preconceived end point that I have to reach a certain financial limit or amount with no heart
Mm-hmm.
into it, you see? And so eventually what happened is, in 2016, a year after you, I gave all my money away, all of it, and I was homeless. And the reason I gave it away was not because I was being charitable. Of course, I gave it to charity. I gave it to the government, but it was because I was so addicted to the money that my heart couldn't get free. And so I learned, for me to be free and follow my heart, I have to let go of this addiction of mine, this drug of mine, which was money. I had to let go of it. So I gave all that away. I went and traveled with, little bits of money in my pocket. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
the universe had a plan, because Compassiviste happened 5 years into my travels. I was, sleeping in train stations and people's homes and things like that, and coming up with this concept of what I want to do. And you know how it triggered, how it started? One of my friends back home was buying a house once, and he was a little bit of money short. And I
Mm-hmm.
said to him, don't worry, I'll give you the down payment, buy it. And then when the value goes up in a couple of years, we'll refinance it and you just pay me back and continue paying your mortgage. No problem. Okay. So we do this, and I forget totally about this whole thing, because it wasn't a big amount of money then for me. Imagine I
Okay.
start Compassiviste in about 4 or 5 months, when I need some money to activate it and get it started, register it, and all those things. I get an email out of nowhere, and it's my friend. He's like, Ali, I can't find you. I can't reach on your phone number. And I never had social media before Compassiviste. Like, I can't even find you anywhere. So I found from somebody this email, because your work email doesn't even work. And so I'm trying my last luck. Please answer me. So I answer him, hey, how you doing, buddy? Whatever. He's like, I refinanced the home and I want to give you the money, but I don't know where to send it to. Imagine that, right? Like, I would have
Yes.
never thought in my life that I'm giving this money because the universe wants me to invest it and hold it here in a bank, essentially, in the universe's bank. And then the universe's bank is going to give it back to me when I actually need it, not for another Lamborghini, but for actual purpose. And so
Mm-hmm.
Compassivity
Mm-hmm.
started with that, you
Wow.
know? So
That's
essentially,
really amazing.
yeah, the story that what you're saying is exactly what I followed as well. I followed exactly your guidance and exactly the stuff you're talking about. So for me, I can guarantee hands down to the public, to everybody, audience, everybody that's listening, watching, that everything you just said should be the way they live. Because if your heart's not speaking to you, you're not doing it right. You're just not doing it right. And what people blame on systems and capitalism and communism and all these things essentially starts there. You allow your heart to be purchased. And when you allow that, you start falling into the crevices of the problems of those systems. Then it becomes a crisis. But it can never become a crisis if, like Lyubim, you don't sell yourself. If, like Lyubim, you don't fall into the cracks. You keep fighting and you keep pushing and you keep wanting so that in 1998, you're in Nagano, you're in a ski hill, and you're ready to go for gold. That's your mindset. When you're waiting for the light to go, that is your mindset. You're not there just to have fun. I mean, you've reached this level and you're really pushing for something, right? That only happens if you continue from here. Because from here,
Yes.
it makes no sense. You're in NYU, get your degree, get some kind of master's or an MBA, try to get into JP Morgan. These are the logical steps you have to follow. The steps you followed were not the logical 1, 2, 3. It's not what they teach you in business school or any of those places, but you really have to follow your heart. I'm so much happier now. I'm wealthier now in so many ways that I could never be before,
Yes.
that I didn't even know exist. I didn't know the concept of wealth existed in my comfort, in my happiness, in just being relaxed, my shoulders just being relaxed. I didn't understand that is wealth. I understood wealth only in the account and the ego and all of what came with success, essentially with financial success. So thank you, and I love what you just said.
Thank you for explaining it so beautifully. It was just really well put together. And I wanted to ask you if it's okay if we spend a few minutes talking about what happens if you're just following, the numbers, if you just sit
Yes,
chasing the
please,
dollars.
please,
Okay.
exactly,
So you,
yes.
you explained really well the whole general picture. Now, after the Olympics, I finished NYU. I had one more year to go. So
Hmm.
I finished NYU, and since I have the Olympic Games, I'm the last graduating class of last century. So I graduated in 1999. The Olympic Games were in 1998. It was fresh. So when I would go to interviews, people were like, "Oh, wow, you just came back from the Olympic parade." And then I go to a small trading company, and the owners look at me and they say, "Lubim, if you can go 60 miles an hour head forward, you can trade. When do you want to start?" And I had an offer from PricewaterhouseCoopers that I accepted. I was going to, I have a degree in accounting and finance, and I was going to become an accountant, make my dad really happy because accounting is a real profession that you get out of undergraduate school. All others, business school degrees are not real professions. So I'm thinking about, they gave me my job description. I was going to go count bricks somewhere in New Jersey, and I could not accept that. But I got offered to work on the trading desk. In my first full year, I was not as successful as you are, nowhere near, but I think it was over $480,000 that I netted working my first full year. And then 9/11 happened, and I had to go all over the country to find my place because I did not want to stay in New York. I'm not a city person. I love outdoors, and like I did it because I had to do it because the best business school and the business is happening in Manhattan, New York. In my mind, you cannot go anywhere but the best place. If you want to be the best, that's where you have to play. So, I left Manhattan probably 3 days after 9/11 because the National Guard moved in. It was like a war zone. They closed all the roads. Like it was just stop. They were figuring out what was going on. But then life went back to normal, and I packed up my car. I went to California. I went to Texas, and then finally I ended up in Colorado, which I call my home. And Wings for Heroes are incorporated. It's a public service corporation out of Colorado. So I get to Colorado and I spent 10 years running a financial practice. I did not take any vacations. I allowed myself a few hours on Sunday to go, to go take my dog to the park. And it got to the point where at some point, I didn't have enough breath left in me to walk. We had an Akita. Akita is a
Yes.
big dog. It's not a fast dog. They're powerful, but they're not like a collie or a blue heeler. They just trot slowly and they tire out really fast because they always hot because of their coat. So here I am walking and I'm like, I'm short of breath. And then I realized, that I've been spending like so much time in the office that my physical, conditioning is dropping way down. And then I find myself not being really happy and, trying to build your own business. We were homeless for more than 1 year, going from shelter to shelter. And then finally I get, 2007 was my big break, because I saw that the crisis was coming and I moved all my clients out of the market. It was not enough. I started a radio show. It really grew. I had 11 stations in 7 different states, and I am living on the plane. I get off the plane. I think it was Hertz Gold membership where you walk off, you see your name on the board. They know the car you want. They know you always take full coverage. It's ready in. And I kept trying different. Q7 came out that year. I remember it was just driving a brand new Q7 and just try. It was so fun, staying nice places, trying cars, meeting great people. I never partied because it's not my thing. I just I enjoyed meeting my clients, and the traveling was really cool, but you spend all your time on the plane. And then it was, had so much business coming in that I had to stop it. It was like November. I had to stop it. I was like, enough. Just let's try to push it over the January 1 line. So I pay my tax. I have, April for the following year, not like in 3 months. And, I just found myself like nothing was exciting. Like all the goals that I wanted to like buy a watch for a woman I loved and go on a really nice trip and afford any restaurant. Like we're doing all that stuff, but it's just blah. And I'm thinking, if after like suffering for especially the last few years were so tough and now I get it, I had nothing and now I get it again. And it's like this, then there's really something is wrong. Like my dad says it's like, imagine if you going into a refrigerator and you taking stuff out and you never putting anything back in. And one day you open that fridge and it's empty. And that's exactly how I found myself. Lots of cash in the bank, really good at my career. I am on top and I am miserable. I am out of shape. I don't have time to be with my friends, even with my clients. It's just like, go, go, go. What's next? How can they get bigger? How can they grow? And life stopped me. It was a broken ankle, followed pneumonia, appendicitis, like 4 months in bed. Just knocked me out so I would stop running.
That was the
And
blessing.
yes,
You know,
it was.
when you look at your life
It
beyond
was.
that, that was the blessing. And it's so weird that
Exactly.
we don't know it in the time. Like in the moment, you're thinking, "Oh my God, I just broke my ankle. Now I have appendicitis. Now pneumonia. Now, and you're like, why
How?
does God hate me?"
Yes.
Right? You're just thinking, why does God hate me? But in fact, it is the universe telling you, I am redirecting you to exactly where you need to go because you're going
Yes.
to jump off a hill. You're going to go jump off this cliff, and I'm actually taking you this way by breaking your ankle. Only in
Yes.
retrospect, only 10 years later, can you come back and say, thank you for breaking my ankle. But in the moment, you're
Yes.
like, are you crazy? Why'd you break my ankle? Right? That's what I keep trying to tell people.
Why me?
Yeah, don't think in the moment. Think, you know, to the future. Like think, how is this advantageous right now? How did this situation, how can it benefit me? How can it direct me into the right passage? So, hey, our lives mirror so much.
Thank you for the
I just
invitation. I
never
really,
jumped
yeah.
off. You know what? I just never jumped off a ski hill in my life. I used to water ski a lot, but even there, we have the jump, And
Yes.
I never did that because when I started water skiing, it was cool to trick ski, and that's where you do the circles and the loops and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And then transitioning from that, the wakeboarding thing came in right away, you know? And I was good at trick skiing, so I quickly picked up the wakeboarding. And with the wakeboard, you've got the rails and jumping and stuff like that, but it's nothing like the actual, you know, water ski jump where and all that. And even in skiing, this is my break your ankle moment. I actually broke my leg playing football right
Hmm.
before ski season when I was very young. So what one of my teachers did, he said, because he can't put all his weight on both legs, and because he's a child, he wants to be with the other kids and all of that. And I had my cast. He's like, I'll put him on a snowboard, right? Because like he will, I will teach him to favor his left leg and put it, you know, put
Okay.
his right leg in front, and he'll be fine. He's a little baby, he'll be fine. That started my snowboarding experience, and then I never skied in my life.
Wow.
So I'm always envious of when I see slaloms, when I see jumps and all that. I'm like, I never got to experience that.
I think you would appreciate the next one. So when I was little, my dad said, Lubim, you can do any sport but cycling. And I was mad about cycling. I mean, I traded everything we had in our house of value for a bike. And I would ride that bike. And then my dad would find out, or my grandma would tell my dad, and because I lived with my grandma, my mom died really early. She was
Oh,
killed in an airplane crash, yeah, when I was one. So I spent a lot of time with my
wow.
grandmother. It was
Sorry to
really
hear.
easy to cheat the grandmother, but it was not so easy, when your dad shows up, because he was really young, he had me when he was 19. And they would find the bike, and it was like, okay, you can do any sport you want but cycling. I said, why, Dad? Why? He said, like, look, even if you have support car, like in the Soviet Union, the roads were really small. There are no shoulders. And it's all the time, like cyclists and professional cyclists, they would always get in issues where there were accidents and there were fatal accidents. So he was like off the road. So he said, no cycling. So I picked ski jumping. I found the safe sport in his mind. It was,
Actually, one of the guys on the team, the director of our podcasting space here, he's crazy about cycling too. He loves cycling, but I'm not a I'm not a big fan either. I get same reason as your dad. I get scared because like I think to myself, cycling. I'm either going to do it in the gym or on the oval, nowhere else. And the
yeah,
beauty of cycling is really the outdoor experience, right? Like when you're cycling
yes,
and you have beautiful view and fresh air and the mountain in front of you and you know, kind of like
scenery.
what I see like you know when you go to the Mediterranean area, especially Portugal and Spain, like it's a big sport there, cycling. And in a lot of the
Hmm.
spaces, like you go away from the coast a little, and it's a lot of mountains and stuff, and people are cycling and stuff and all of that. And for me, I was always like, yeah, no. But wow, so you could have been an Olympic cyclist, but you became an Olympic ski jumper.
I think it would have been really good because, with my mentality, I was dreaming about bikes. But, skiing was really good because it just so happened that my home situation when I got a little bit older, it was not really, it was terrible. My stepmom was an alcoholic and she was a mean drunk. So for me, when we went for the first ski trip, I realized that this is my escape. So there was no stopping me after that. Not only I loved skiing, it was also a way to go somewhere and be away from the home where you have no safety. And being part of the team was my safety net. So a lot of times people think that a lot of athletes are talented. You mentioned it at the beginning, the ones who have become the best. And I'm not the best because I'm not there, very different level. I just got lucky that I qualified for the Olympic Games. But the real ones who are in it, like take Mike Tyson. He says, I don't ever want my kids to box
Mm-hmm.
because they came from the ghetto and life in the ghetto makes you tough. And I
Yeah.
grew up in the ghetto and I know what he means because when you meet somebody who is coming from a regular household, you don't even need to have privileges. We have some kind of advantage because since before I was 2, I had to learn how to fend for myself. You know, when kids are going through a natural process where their moms are their protectors, I didn't have that. So when I go out and people say, "Oh, can you talk about resilience?" I was like, I don't even know where to begin. You know, it just so happened that my life told me toughen up really early. You're gonna have to fend for yourself. Nobody's coming to help you. And you know, my dad helps me a
Yes.
lot still now. You know, with Wings for Heroes, it is such a huge project that I had to ask him for help. But from the very early beginning in my life, I had to take steps. And if I stopped, I would have been lost, you know, like with millions of other people, or maybe with the billions that are being forced to migrate right now. Look at Ukraine right now. It's a terrible war. And
Yes.
I think the reason I am not there because, you know, I kept going all the time. And I actually was one of the fortunate ones who got so good in what I was doing and so tough that when the chance came for me to help other people, I said yes. Now, I said yes without realizing what I was getting myself
Mm.
into. But once I was in it, I was like, oh, wow, this is real. You know, we are not talking about fighting somewhere else. It's like in here, you know? So, um, one of my happiest times was when I was homeless. And one of my most miserable times was when I had the most money I ever had. And I had business coming in so much I didn't know what to do with it. Do you know what I mean, Ali?
Yes, I know. And let me tell you, let me give you an example. I was in Istanbul in Turkey and I was sleeping in a train station and pretending because they don't let you. So I was pretending to be sitting there waiting or something, on my phone or something just to get the night to go through. And
Hmm.
a homeless person came and he spoke in Turkish. And I don't speak it, but I kind of understand because I've been there so much. And with broken sign language and different languages and stuff, I told him, I'm Canadian. And he laughed and he's like, no, you're not. And I said, yeah. And then I showed him my passport and he's like, but how's a Canadian sitting here homeless? And so, because for him it was difficult, right? I mean, Canadian, you don't expect that. And I said, I'm just traveling and I don't have money and whatever. And so he said, do you want to eat? And I said, I don't I don't have money. And he said, no, it's okay, come. And I thought, I don't know, okay. So we went together, walked for about 20 minutes. He gets to this place where it's kind of like a government shelter place where,
Hmm.
you show your ID card and they give you a meal. And so I heard him standing there at the counter, pointing to me, and I was standing a little further, and saying that he's a foreigner. I found him at the train station. He hasn't eaten. He doesn't have money. And can I get a second meal for him? And the person said, no, you have to have ID because they count them and whatever, this and that. So they had a little
Hmm.
argument and he left. When he left, I was about to say to him, it's okay. It's fine. I know you tried. Don't worry about it. I'll find something to eat. I was going to say that when he reached me, he said, I got us food. I got us food. And this is a homeless person. And this is all the food. This is his whole entire net worth, right? He
Hmm.
shared his net worth in half with me that day. That
Wow.
was one of the happiest moments of my life. It still is. Because to me, to have a meal with someone, knowing that for the both of us, this is everything that exists in that moment, and that person had the compassion of the fantasies and the imaginary stories and the real historical stories we talk about. I mean, you talk about Jesus, you talk about anybody you want to bring up, Mother
Hmm.
Teresa, whatever. This was a living example of a person who should be guarding his food like that. Instead, he's sharing it with me openly, like, here, have some more, eat more, eat more. And he's saying, oh, I'm going to eat with my friends later to eat more, right? So
Hmm.
that
Yes.
that moment is one of the happiest moments that I experienced. Let me take you back before that. I was living the life, one of the wealthiest people in the nation, and I was waking up in the morning miserable I would look for arguments. I would look for reasons to be upset that day because there was nothing that I could look forward to during the day that gave me any of the things I wanted. And so
Hmm.
this was late in realizing who I've become. I mean, before this, I was just throwing myself into events and experiences just to escape, like you said. You were escaping from all that you were escaping from, which is, very harsh. I had nothing to escape from but dissatisfaction. So what was I doing? I was traveling a lot. I was
Hmm.
shopping a lot for no reason. It got to a point where there was nothing for me to buy for myself. I was shopping for other people.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Oh, my friend has a child. I'll buy this for my friend's child. Oh, this toy
Hmm.
looks really nice. I'll buy it for my other friend's child. Oh, this dress is nice. I'll buy it for my friend's wife. No reason, right? But just to let time go so the day ends, right? And immersing myself in work. Obviously, we got to a point
Yes.
where it wasn't that stressful anymore. It was, kind of like on a steady flow, and I was
Hmm.
just unhappy. And one of those unhappy times, I remember, um, I was looking for excuses not to engage in going to places that people dream of, an event that people would really dream of being and stuff like that. Here I had full
Hmm.
access and my own table and everything else. And I would try to find a way to fake having some serious illness or something so that I could kind of skip it. Why? Because I didn't want
Hmm.
to be there. I didn't, but at the same time, I was still too fearful to get out of my space. I was still too fearful to let it all go because that was everything
Yeah.
that was meaningful to me, So for you,
Identity.
skiing,
It's like,
yeah, that was the identity for you when you escaped your home and the situations and everything else that you were going through and the ghettos that you grew in. You were in a place where this hill, me, in that 10 seconds is my entire free. I'm
yeah.
flying. Literally, you're flying, right?
Yeah.
When you're in the air for
Yeah.
those few seconds, nothing can touch you. That was what I was looking for.
Like
And
that,
when I
exactly.
was in Istanbul, in that train station, with no possession, no worries, no people I don't want to say hi to, nothing, but just myself and somebody who's actually, without knowing me, giving me more than half of what they have. There was no
Yeah.
bigger heaven that I could be into because before that,
Yeah.
a lot of our relationships, I mean, you experience probably this too. When you become successful, a lot of your relationships change. And a lot of your relationships start building on the money and on the trade aspects of the wealth, whether it's personal or, professional. And, the metrics change. So here it was so pure, such a pure exchange that I said to myself, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a world where this exchange is the norm. And ever since
Hmm.
that, I've been on the path with Compassiviste, trying to make that happen, trying to really get there through the different programs that we do. But I want to ask you this. I went and started Compassiviste. When you found
Hmm.
your passion and what you want to continue into, you went and you found wingsforheroes.org.
Yes.
Run me through why, what you do, and what are you aiming for with this?
Okay.
Start with why. Why did
What
you
I
leave?
do,
Why did you leave and start this?
I was at one of our gas stations, when I was working for the infrastructure company in Ukraine. And I see this guy on a wheelchair without two legs rolling out. It was one of our highway stations, and I saw him going towards the highway, but I know there is no path to walk, and especially there is no path to ride a chair on. And we're talking about 2015, 2016, the early years when the war was contained in Ukraine. It was on the east side, they were fighting terrorists, nobody would say that it was, Russia attacking. It was, they just kind of, it's terrorist organization and nobody would accept responsibility. But these guys were coming back already totally damaged. So I think 15, 20 minutes goes by and we had hit huge thunderstorm rolled in. It was like lightning, hail, just extreme. And where we lived in Ukraine on the western part, if you go west, it's Hungary. So until you get to the Alps, there is nothing. It's all flat. So when that cold air runs off the Alps, it covers all Hungary. And we're the first place that has the little mountain, which is starting like 300 meters. And then they go up a little bit more than 1,000. So the weather changes to extreme. And in the summer, hailstorms are normal. And it's like super powerful. And I'm thinking about this guy, right? And when you're running an infrastructure company, one thing you have is a lot of cars. So I called one of the drivers and they said, look, now here with the pickup truck, run. And the guy shows up with the truck. We get in the truck, we drive out down the road, and we find this guy rolling in the dirt on the side of the road. He's going, all the big trucks are splashing him. He was in such bad shape, man. You could not I don't understand how nobody stopped, but we stopped. We get him out, we put the chair in the back, we get him inside of the car, and they see that even without the rain, he's like, he's been forgotten for a long time. And he's totally damaged and really bad health and like really sad situation. So we drive him home. I remember we got him some cigarettes, we got him something to drink and to eat. And it was such a sad scene now, like this guy gave all he had, like for me as an athlete, having my body is important. Like I'd like to go skiing. I want to be outside. I need to move. And like this guy can't. He just not only stuck in his chair, he is stuck. He has nowhere to go. The system is not designed to help him. So that was the first time. And then when the full scale invasion started in 22, maybe like just a few months after, I saw this teenage girl walk out in front of a full stadium of people and she's missing a leg. And she says, you know what? They can come, they can take part of my land, they can take part of my body, but they're not going to break me. And the reaction that she had was amazing. And I knew that moment that I cannot not do anything, Sorry, I cannot look away anymore, man. We just have such comfortable life
Yeah.
and we live, if you look east every morning, when you look east, when you look towards the sunrise, the war is there. It's always east and it wants to go west. So us living in countries that are Western countries, we have to understand that in between war and peace, there is a space. And that space is occupied by really brave men and women. They said, I am not going to let death and destruction come into my country. And I am willing to go and sacrifice everything I have to protect you. But when I get messed up and something happens to me, I come back home and you take care of me. And that's a social contract that we made with all those people who protect us. And when you see that the system is failing, I I couldn't look away. People say, Lubin, this is for like the governments to do it. Like it's too big. Just so you know, Ukraine last summer, a year ago, Ukraine had over 50,000 amputees. Just in the first 2 years, it's 50,000 amputees. And the system is overwhelmed and it's not designed to do anything for them because, the country has to survive. Now imagine all these men and women, they just get pulled out of their home. They go, this guy who is in our logo, it's our first guy who we flew. So what I do is I take him out of place that is at war or, in the States, it would be the vets who came back. And I wanted to take them paragliding because I'm a pilot and I remember flying first time and it scared me so much. I forgot about all my problems. I said bye to my dad. I said bye to my brother in the air. And then I actually went and learned how to fly myself. So my thought was, if I take somebody who's really traumatized, and they're really traumatized because they just lost part of their body, and I take them into the air, that first moment when they go off, they will not remember that they're missing a leg or two or whatever. So my thought was scare them to death so much that for a moment that they forget that they're less than. And the thing is that experience resets a lot of things. Now, flying is like one day, and it's that experience. But I bring them. It was to be 7 days. Now it's 10 days. So I take 1+1 because I need a spouse. Because hiring somebody to help an MPT would be really expensive. But if they have a wife or a girlfriend or a family member who's a caregiver, they just come together and they enjoy it. And I don't have to worry about when do we need medicine, when do we need a break, there is somebody else who's taking care of it. So last year was the first time we brought somebody, and they said, look, everything is wonderful. We love the people, we love the culture, we love the sea, we love the mountain. Flying was just amazing. But can we have like 2 or 3 more days so we can sleep in peace and quiet? We just want to sleep. So now this last group, it was April 9 to April 19th. I had an MPT and I actually had a deaf veteran. He had a hand grenade explode and it took off half of his face and they had to stitch his right ear. And those guys are in the most difficult situation because when somebody is missing a leg or something, you can see it. But he got plastic surgery, when he's wearing sunglasses, you can't tell that he's disabled. And we had the situation when the hotel people complained, like somebody's shouting. And the manager calls me and he says, somebody's shouting. And they lived in the hotel right across from my home. So I walk across and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And then I'm walking out and I'm realizing he's deaf on one ear. So they have to shout. Otherwise he's not hearing. And I turned around and I said, listen, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you, but one of our guests is deaf. And he is like, oh my God. So, you know, then I took them, to physical therapy, to to my physical therapist because I have a little shoulder injury that's been ongoing. So constantly have to, in order for me to move my arm, I have to be in physical therapy. And they bring one guy into physical therapy. My therapist looks at his only leg and she says, "Oh my God, look at that." I'm like, "What?" She says, "Look at his muscle." He says his muscles are so short because he's always putting pressure on one leg that it's pressing on his sciatic nerve. He's going to punch his disc and he's going to be paralyzed. Now the guy is 23 years old. I am thinking 23. I came back from the Olympics. I knew nothing. I haven't seen anything in my life. Yeah, I've seen the Olympic parade, but all the experiences that came after, I just thought like, you just erase that and all you can do is stay at home and drink. So it was in April and I knew I had to bring him back now. So what I did was I did this thing, I wanted to share this with you. This is us standing on the beach in April. The guy in red shorts is deaf. On one side, the guy who's missing a leg, obviously you can see that he's missing a leg, right? And on the back, I wrote this, why we're here. The guy who is missing a leg, his name is Balik. He must begin a 30-day physical therapy program in May 2025 to save his leg. And I have no clue how I'm going to fund this thing because, I just spent 2 years building this organization and everything we have goes into these guys. And I wrote this as the promise. In May 29th, he came back. He's right here doing a month of physical therapy. I don't have a team. I don't have a paycheck. There's nobody around helping me. Yeah, I told you I asked my dad for help because I really needed to go to the States. I wanted to get my program to the US Senate and Congress, and it's a long road. It's not going to be tomorrow. And then that time I needed somebody to back me up. But other than that, before this, from public, we raised $36. So I'm really bad at raising money and asking for money. That is my weakness. And I kept going because I wanted to answer one question that I hear all the time. What can I do? I'm just one guy. Okay, Ali? I think it's a cop out. It's a bad excuse to say, what can I do? And just real quickly, my inspiration is Henry Dunant. It's a Swiss banker who in 1859 traveled from Switzerland to Italy for business. He was a young man in his 20s and he arrived to a place called Solferino on June 25th, 1859. And he witnessed the battle of Austro-Hungarian army that had about 170,000 soldiers. And on the other side, there was the Imperial Army. So you have France and Italy. I think they had like around 140 or 150. After they finished fighting on that day, there were more than 40,000 dead and wounded people in that field. And Henry Dunant was the guy who was standing there and he said nobody was helping them. They just like messed each other up and left, and that's the end. So he went around, he organized all the villagers. At that time, there were only women because all the men were fighting. And they started pulling out the injured from that field, and it took them more than a week. They filled all the churches. They said some churches had more than 1,000 people. It was a big mess. Now, he finishes with that. He goes back to Geneva and he writes a book. It's called Memory of Solferino. I don't have a copy of it, but it's tiny little paperback. And that book got such a wide attention that he started the Red Cross. So one guy goes, sees something, he cannot look away. And he says, I'm going to do something about it. He helps all the people he can. And then he starts the Red Cross. 11 months later, they signed the first Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention regulates, there are rules, how we treat people who are injured at war and how we treat innocent bystanders, how we treat prisoners of war. Now, how the rules being followed, it's a secondary discussion. But I'm saying now, there are more than 11 million people who volunteer for the Red Cross today. Remember I told you that after September 11th, I went to California, I went to Texas until I got to Colorado. I was qualified as a displaced person. The Red Cross sent me a check for $15,000 and they said, here, Lyubim, good luck. Find your new home and new work. And I never heard anything from them. So the only feeling that I had towards Red Cross my whole entire life, all the scandals and all the stuff that comes out, it's not my experience. They helped me rebuild at the most difficult time. And later on, when I went around the world to find out how society keeps promises to, people who keep us safe and able to have this conversation and pursue our dreams, it was just one man who started it all. And I'm just one man who's trying to do the same thing. And the only thing, I have volunteers. The system is working. If anybody wants to come see what we're doing, it's an open source organization. But I really need financial help. I really need to fund the next guy and the next girl, and I have them. I know who's coming, Ali. The next guy who's going to come, he's 22 years old. He lost two legs, but he said, no, he started exercising, he started walking, he climbed the highest mountain in Ukraine in the winter, and he proposed to his girlfriend who was caregiver. He's inspiring everybody. He's a guy without two legs running around showing, look, you have no excuse. You have no excuse to sit down and say, well, life is so tough on me. These people, they're inspiring everybody. We walk outside, everybody wants to help because they see it, they see this. You guys don't see it, but if you want to see it, you just go to wingsforheroes.org and you can find out the whole story. I do my best to tell it. I am one person trying to do it all. And all of us, we can do a lot. And the help that I need right now is the financial help to bring the next people. And it's endless. Unfortunately, it's endless. How many of them that are just forgotten, that are sitting at home and drinking because they don't know what else to do. And this is saving lives for generations,
I hear you. I hear you. And you know what? For all the people who say that's the government's job or that's systemic or that's whatever, change happens exactly with one person. When you started with the name, I knew exactly you were going to the Red Cross because I know the story. And, a lot of movements, Greenpeace, didn't start as this massive, ginormous movement with ships and, offices, and everything starts with an idea one person has that kind of, develops into something. Even some of our greatest innovations, Facebook, didn't start as this conglomerate idea of, say, Apple today coming up with a new system. No, it started in
Right.
dorm room, with
Right.
kids, but it's the pursuance of it that's important. Now, I find the problem is you know what? I'll put it straight. We're just hypocritical. That's the problem. We're hypocritical. When you said something very important. You said earlier, when you started talking about this, you said there's a social contract. They go out there, they protect us. When they come back, what are we doing? We have, we glorify people who are, who score a goal in a championship, who have a beautiful body that they show on social media, who have designed a pair of shoes that is different to the rest of the
Yeah.
pairs of shoes. We glorify these people. We glorify actors who act the life of the person who we should glorify. You know what I mean? We glorify,
Yes.
Will Smith for playing Ali, not Ali. Muhammad Ali,
Right?
different story. But let's give the Oscars and all the. And I'm not. This isn't against Will Smith. I'm just saying as an example. We glorify the theater. We don't glorify the reality. We don't participate in it. We don't do anything about it. So when you're talking about, you know, veterans, you don't have to go to countries in poverty to also see this. Right there in the US, you're there. You're right there in the US. You should, the amount of homeless people who are veterans who went to countries and fought terrorism, the people who went and fought the same kind of terrorism that you experienced in 9/11. That
Yeah.
was a horrific situation. There are people
Yes.
who went to Afghanistan to stop that from happening again. What have you
Yes.
done as an American to the entire American public to ensure that when these people come back, they're living in mansions? They're the ones who are comfortable. They're the ones who can go buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner without worrying about how much it's going to cost. Instead of thinking, should I have breakfast today or should I have lunch today? Where is the public? I don't care about the government. I don't care about the government because we have enough money. We as citizens around the world have enough money to support. Now, some places need support from outside. Ukraine right now is not wealthy. It needs people to help them from outside. The situation in Gaza, they don't have money.
Yes.
You need people to pay from outside. You look at Gaza and then, you look at some of the wealthiest cities in the world and they're really close to Gaza. I mean, we're talking a few hours drive or an hour or two flight, right?
Yes.
You look at Ukraine. You just cross the sea and you're in Istanbul. There's a lot of wealth in Istanbul. There are a lot of billionaires in
Yeah.
Istanbul. A lot, okay? And what are we doing as humans? Where are we spending this? What are we pursuing? What are we fighting for? We're standing there, some cities in the world, you'll go and you'll walk down a street and unfortunately you'll see a lineup and you're like, what are these people lining up for? Oh, there's a new Gucci purse coming out today that's a limited edition. That's $20,000. And you look at the lineup and there's a lineup of, 80 people. And you're thinking, all of you have that much excess and
Yeah.
surplus that you're willing to throw to something like that, but you're not willing to line up across the street to help animals, humans, children that
Anything.
desperately need
Anything.
this, right?
Yeah.
Desperately. They desperately need your help to stay alive, to stay alive. We don't do that. So it's all a hypocrisy. It's not to blame it. I don't blame anybody, but I blame myself. If I have $10 in my pocket and I can eat with $2 and I can give $8 to help, and if I don't do that, and instead I'm having the meal for $10, I'm a hypocrite. I gotta admit that. I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, I accept living with this shame. And I'm fine with it. If I'm fine with it, and I say, I'm not a human, I'm another breed, go on with your life.
Hmm.
Do it. Flaunt it. Wear the big brand logo, go out, be in wealth, do all of those things, be in full excess, and own it and say, I don't care. I'm not human. If I was human and if I had a card that says you're a human being, yes, I would be ashamed of myself. But I'm not human. I'm this new breed. I'm this new breed of cutthroat capitalist human being that only thinks about this. So I put them aside. But then I come to all the humans and I say, You just said you're a human. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis, right? What are you doing? I'm in the same boat. We're there. You go on our website. We're trying to help all these organizations. Just 2 days ago, over the weekend, a friend of mine, imagine this. The guy was a Harvard professor, a Harvard PhD,
Mhm.
and he
Mhm.
left all of that, and he's in uh, Tanzania helping the, you know, he's there, and he's helping build huts and fight climate change problems and help social issues and stuff like that. And he sent me pictures of how they, with these little dinky shovels and stuff, are digging the soil to put a water pipe so that they can run the water from the pond after it's cleaned with a solar panel energy
Mhm.
source to the huts, so that they don't have to walk 3 hours a day to get water, right? And he's so proud of that, and he's doing that. And the whole thing to get water across to people, it costs 4,000 US dollars. I have another friend who is an organization called Techo. They're building home for the homeless people in Latin America. An entire house built is about $5,000 to $7,000. An entire house
Mhm.
where a kid can go and find space and say, this is mine, and feel secure and comfortable and go to school like other children, and feel like they're living in a box that's a shelter, that's a home, as opposed to sleeping on different pavements with their mom every night. 5 to 7,000, right? And you think to yourself, hey, everybody's going to do this. We're going to be
Right.
up to here with millions of dollars, because who's not going to give $5,000? Like, that's insane for somebody to have a house. Who's not going to give $4,000 for someone to have clean water? Who's not going to give $5,000 for someone to be able to re-experience life in what you're doing, in the way that you're helping, right? You're helping people find themselves again, find freedom, find hope, find life. Leave aside all the medical issues, like the bone, the muscle that's shortening, and it's going to spasm and it's going to paralyze them. Leave that aside. Just up here, you're giving them life, and you think, oh, people are going to write checks left, right, and center when they hear about me, because I'm organizing something so good that it allows people to do this. But then you wake up in the morning and you put all your effort into it and you do all of that, and you go out there thinking it's going to be shining, and you notice people say, oh, you're doing such a lovely job, and they'll put all the likes on your Instagram
Yeah.
posts, and go Lyubim, you're a hero, from Olympic the jumper to this, and successful book he wrote, Successonomics, with famous people, and he spoke at the UN, and he's such a great guy, Lyubim, he's going to do amazing. I'm not giving $1. I'm just going to hype you up. I'm just going to sit here and say, yay, Lyubim, because you have a good history behind you. You have a successful bestseller. You went to the Olympics. You have all these things. You're a hero. You're going to do it. This is what Lyubim is doing today. But me as a citizen, me as feeling responsibility, me as saying, I'm part of Lyubim, I'm part of this society that has to abide by this social contract. I'll break the contract because there's no consequence to that break. Imagine
Yeah. Until
you get a mortgage from a bank and you don't pay it back, and the bank can't do anything about it. Are you going to pay them ever? No. The only
no.
reason we pay a mortgage is because we lose the house, we lose the down payment, and
Yes.
our credit goes to zero. So for those reasons, we pay our mortgage, not because we're good people. We pay it because the consequences are worse than not paying. But when you go to help, what are the consequences of not helping? What are the consequences of not upholding your social contract? Nothing. Nothing. And in fact, if you don't help and you go buy that Gucci bag, you're even applauded more. So,
Yeah.
so, so the response for not helping is bravo. The response for helping is, oh man, you're stupid. You just gave your money to people who it's never going to end. Poverty never ends. There's always going to be poverty. Why are you giving your money to poverty? That's the response. That's the mindset. So the hypocrisy of the human social world, especially in the West and in the pockets of the world that have wealth is becoming really something it's reaching psychosis for me, because you have to be
It
illogical to
has.
accept those things.
Yeah.
But now I
And I
want to ask
think
you
it was,
this:
yeah. Yes.
how can we help you, for the people who care, and for us as Compassiviste? How can we help you?
Okay.
What are you looking for? Tangibles. What are you
I
really looking for?
I will just say, one of the things that I've learned from the Red Cross, that there are only three ways we can all help. Number one, we could donate blood because there's always shortage. I was just in Wisconsin on my trip earlier. It was May, and I found out that they were really in dire situation. Like they really needed blood, and they were organizing blood drives. So I just went into American Legion and I donated blood. So if you can, you have to donate blood. Second thing you can do is you can volunteer, because providing service to somebody who needs help is the biggest thing that we can do. It's the time that we will never get back. And I am clearly aware that every moment that I do something, I'm not getting it back. So if you have time and you can help somebody, that's how you can help in the second way. And the third way is donating money. So if you cannot donate blood, if you cannot volunteer your service and time, then you can help by donating money. And in case of Wings for Heroes, I was lucky that I was able to find money to bring our hero for 1 month of rehab. And we're talking about funny numbers. Ali, he's getting 3 sessions of physical therapy. At the end, there's acupuncture, there's massage. Then on Wednesday, we're starting cycling. He's going to learn how to cycle with one leg, and he's going into the pool. And I have a psychologist who said, I invited her to our last meeting and to show what we're doing. And I said, look, can we make a deal? I'll just pay you some fixed dollar amount, and whatever people come, can you work with all of my heroes? And she said, not only with them, I will work with their families, because, people who are supporting them, they're really in tough psychological shape. So for all that, I can bring a guy here for a month. He's going to have a psychologist. He's going to have physical therapy, personal coaching. It's a professional triathlete who's going to teach them how to cycle with one leg or no legs, and he's going to put them in the pool. And we're talking about $7,000. But everything for me is taking so slow because I've done all the work, and this is the first time that I'm asking public for money. I told you that I raised $36 in public, and that's where I'm at. If I don't find the money, I cannot bring them. And if I cannot bring them, they will die. They will die from alcoholism, suicide, loneliness, isolation. So for anybody who wants to help, you just can go to wingsforheroes.org. And if you just want to talk to me, you say, don't write me a check. You want to talk to me, just hit the contact button. I will call you personally and we will have the conversation. And everybody's invited, to see what we're doing. There's nothing to hide here. I am the one who picks up, this guy from his home. I go with him to physical therapy because I want to see how it's working. If I have a big organization in the future, I need to understand how little things work. I know how everything works. And if somebody is in a point in your lifetime, like I was before, where I could write a check and you have the time and you want to see what is done, just come out. So, wingsforheroes.org, contact button. I try to make movies, I'm not really good, but I know it's important to share what I'm doing. It's all there. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. The videos are there and the contact information is there.
You know what, Lyubim? I was going to ask you questions about book and other things and whatever, but I'm not. I think what you're doing now and here, it would be a disservice for me to ask you those questions. And it would honestly be a little bit of how do I even put this nicely? It would be rude for me to not think of Wings for Heroes as your gold medal and think of your bestseller or your ski jump or anything else you've done in your life before this moment as those climactic moments of your life. Okay. So I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to stick with Wings for Heroes. And I will support. I will help. I will add your cause to what we're doing at Compassiviste and raising money, and
Thank you, Alex.
you know, I'm not going to shy away from it. I will stand there with you. Sometimes even if you lose, you go down with someone, you go down with someone. It's the right thing to do, right? I mean, if you don't have a moral sense anymore, or if you don't have a dutiful understanding of life anymore, you need to check yourself into a space. I'm not talking a psychologist or just yourself. You need to check your inside yourself and see where you lost your humanity. And it's a real problem. It's a real problem. We walk by people. We just walk by them. We actually walk by them. We don't, and people say compassion is a feeling. To me, it's not. I mean, when you live in these cold places like Colorado and Toronto, and when you're living in Denver or Toronto or New York City, and you walk past a homeless veteran and it's minus 30 degrees Celsius, and they're there drinking because that's the only way they stay hot. And you walk by and somebody sheds a tear or somebody says, "Oh, this is awful. I can't deal with this. It's just ruined my night and I'm so compassionate." No, you're not. You don't care. Because if you cared, you would do something. Compassion is in the action. It's not in the
Yeah.
emotion. Me and you can cry all day about sad stories. But if we cry all day about sad stories and then go out and have dinner and then sleep comfortably in our warm beds and wake up the next morning and just go about life like that didn't happen yesterday, where is the human in us? The human in us is to say, no, no, no. If I can do something about it, I'm going to. And if I cannot, I'm going to ask people how and what I can do. So maybe most people watching this can't go to Ukraine and help. They can't go anywhere in the US and help. They don't know what to do. They're not a physiotherapist. They're not a psychologist. They can't volunteer their time because they don't have time or whatever. But you know what? Even if you have $5,
Yeah.
show action, and then you'll feel that, you know what, I contributed something, because not because I contributed because whatever. No, I contributed because I care and I believe that I'm one person, and if another 5 million people thought like me and contributed $5, Lyubim is going to save all of the war veterans in the world. That's what it takes. Each person's input. You don't want to wait for Bill Gates to hear this conversation and say, "Oh, I feel for what Lyubim is doing. Have my team call him. I'm giving away all my wealth in the next, by 2040, I'm shutting down. I'm giving away all my wealth. Here, I'll give you $100 million too." That's not the moment I'm waiting for, because that to me is also another problem. Because the public in
Yeah.
general sits back and says, Bill Gates is going to do it. We have Superman over here. We
Yeah.
have Batman over there. We have Wonder Woman over there. We have all these superheroes that are going to save the planet, so I can just go about my life and be the ignorant person that I am, because there's always going to be a hero that's going to bail us out. Can't think that way anymore. We got to think as a collective. We're a group of people. We got to do something right together as a collective. So we're going to stay in touch for sure, and I'm going to support what you're doing, and we're going to try to get you
Thank you.
a design and a strategy and a format to kind of get into that steady income stream, so we can do something. There are
Thank
I
you.
know of other Ukrainians who are involved with raising funds for the war, for other things, and they're doing well. I can get you in touch with them. There's so many things I can do when I put my mind to it. But if I don't put my mind to
Yes.
it and I just say, "Oh, time's up. Thank you, Lyubim, for the conversation," and then I go and I put ads to make this episode blow up or to get nice views and whatever, I don't care about the conversation. I don't care about the episode. I don't care about anything. I just care of your performance on screen so that it sells me more subscriptions. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm doing so that I can hear stories like you, so that I can get involved and say, how can we help?
Ali, thank you so much for saying it, because in this day and age, like having a space like this, it becomes a rarity. I think after COVID, especially, we've been all separated, we've been divided, the divide and conquer.
Yes,
So now
yes.
everybody's sitting in their little home, looking in the computer. It's even though before we used to go and interact with people, we don't even need to interact with everybody. and we're losing our, the part that is a human part. You didn't want to ask about the book, but the way I participated in the project with Steve Forbes was if I donate all the proceeds that came from the book to charities. I haven't seen one cent, man. I didn't. It
Lyubim,
went. They said it went to over
if you go on
200
our website,
charities. You know.
Lyubim, if you go on our website, I have over 20 books that I've written. Okay,
Hmm.
100% of the books go to the foundation at Compassiviste Foundation.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't seen one penny of the books. Not only that, I
Okay.
also cover the costs of the books from my pocket. So
So you know exactly, right?
my editor, the publisher, everybody on the team gets
Getting.
paid from
Yes.
me, gets paid from me,
Exactly.
and the $5 that they pay for the book, all of that $5 to the penny goes to the foundation.
To the. Yes.
So you see what I mean? This is how it's working right now.
Yes.
Maybe 10 years from now we're big and we cover our costs as well because there's enough money or something. But right now, I'm not even letting I'm giving everybody sends me a bill at the end of the month and I just pay it out of my own account because
Yeah.
I can't. What am I going to do? Because all of that $5 that you're trying to help is going to go directly to our costs. I can't help anybody. How's that model going to grow, or how is it going to empower people and help people and support them in thinking that the book that they bought is actually supporting something and they can tangibly see that support? It's not going to do that. It's
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
funding my own pet project of the publishing house. I can't allow myself to do that. So the same thing you're doing, I'm doing too. We're in the same space, right? And there's so many people like us.
Yes.
We're not the only two. We're not two unicorns that found each other. There are hundreds of people like us in the world, okay? But there are literally only hundreds of people. Whereas there are
Yeah.
millions of people on the other side of the shelf, and
Yes.
they're sitting there screaming, don't care, don't care, go consume, go
Why?
buy more, buy
Yeah.
the bigger house, buy the bigger car, upgrade this, upgrade that. And their voice is so much louder, which is why you get $36. And which is why when Apple has a new phone out, they sell out in the first 3 days. Can you sell out in
Yeah.
the first 3 days? No, because you're not selling what the public is
Once.
hypnotized to buy. It's not what they want. No, they're
Mhm.
hypnotized to want that. They're in this trance. It's not what they want, because if you think about the iPhone 15 to the 16 or the 16 to the 17, it's so minuscule, the differences, that it's impossible for someone to need that difference in performance.
Hmm.
You're an athlete. You
Hmm.
understand a split second or a split meter of performance. Okay.
But
But
it's just the phone.
you see what I mean? Like, it's
Yes.
different in some
Exactly.
places. When I tell
Absolutely.
you, hey, Lubim, if you go down the slope in this new ski with this new design or fabric, you're going to gain, I don't know, 3 meters. Of course, it makes sense because
If we
that's,
get point zero zero zero
yes,
one, we are going
exactly.
for it.
If you're getting 0.0001, you don't want it. You don't want that upgrade. Technology is worth it when the upgrade is measurable in your performance. The Apple 15 to
Yes.
16 is not measurable in the difference for 99% of the population. So
And it looks the same.
why are 99% buying it then? Because we are hypnotized
I'm
into this
just. Yeah.
situation. It's not what we want. No, but how do we get out of it? How do we get out of it so that we can do the real work, so that we can spend our money the real way? So
We
that,
have this
yes,
this compass, that's the
exactly,
hard
exactly.
compass.
We have to train that muscle, right? I mean, that's where we have to train. Instead of training everything else and training how to tap our cards everywhere and shop, we have to start training our hearts, and that's where we are. Lubim, I want to ask you one final question, and I want a
Okay.
short one sentence answer because I want people to take this as your last statement. Okay. If you close your eyes for a moment and then open them and imagine while your eyes are closed that you're the most powerful person on earth, not in dominance or being a James Bond villain, but in exactly what you said, moral compass, vision, influence, the compassion you can bring to the world. What is the first action you would take to ignite this global shift towards compassionate action, towards what I call compassiviste, essentially, so we can lead the world to the social harmony that takes accountability of the social contracts that we have either signed formally or universally have agreed to live by when we come to this planet? What would that answer be for you?
The question is, what would I do?
Yeah.
I think I would bring that picture to everyone's eyes, like we get to see new iPhones, you know? I would go get on every station and say, look, if you look away from this guy or girl who just lost their legs protecting you, then one day you will not have the freedom. This person is important because with their body and their future and all the dreams that they had, they said, I'm going to take care of you. Now it's my turn to take care of them. And it's your turn to take care of them too. Because if we don't, it's like last light will go out in this world and we will live in complete darkness. Because evil is real and it wants to get bigger. They are the ones who stopped it. It doesn't matter. I am not waving flags, you know? It doesn't matter what part of the world. It's just the fact when they take off uniforms, they're just kids, man. They're 20, 30-year-olds. They had their life, they had their dreams, future families, generations. It's finished. So you look away now, you're going to live in the darkness. And the evil's going to come after you. If they say, no, we're not going to do it, the war and peace, it will be one thing. There will be no peace.
Lyubim Kogan, thank you for speaking on Compassiviste Dialogues, and thank you for your powerful conviction, especially to turn adversity into opportunity and your personal success into collective service. Your journey reminds us that true leadership is not about titles or accolades. It's about the courage to act with integrity and with compassion, the action of compassion, especially when it's not on a stage, especially when nobody's watching, like right now. You were on a stage. It's very different how you act on that stage with limelight, with all the cameras on you. And it's very different to be on a stage where you can't get 10 people to donate more than $36, but you still fight and you still stand there and you still wear that shirt proudly and you don't lose and you don't give up and you're going to fight and you're going to win. Because failure is when you take that shirt off. That's when you fail. Until you wear that shirt, even if you don't get $37, you're still fighting. So you still have hope. There's still a mission. There's still action. So I'm so proud of you for being
Thank
who
you.
you are. That teaches me and the audience and everybody else that this is what it's about. It's not about self-interest. It's about the commitment to uplift others. It's about how we support others. You did it in your life before, when you worked for during the 2008 financial crisis. I heard part of the work that you did is, it was a net zero situation. Nobody had a loss of your clients. So that is you uplifting your clients. You weren't working for you, because I had colleagues who lost a lot of their clients' money, but they still made their commission. They still made their money. They still made their paycheck, right? You didn't do that. So, and then all the way here to, healing veterans, supporting them, giving them their life back, or at least, working towards that. So, your life has been a blueprint to compassionate action, which is why, Lyubim, I tell you, you're a compassivist without knowing the term, because that is what it is. I mean, when you act with compassion, you become that character. We just never had a
Yes.
word for it. The reason I made that word compassivist is because there was no, if you can think of a word that is a compassionate activist, you can't find it. So, from now on, you can say, when people ask you, you say, I'm a compassivist. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm a
Okay.
compassivist because I act in that way. That's what I do. I act with my compassion, and that's what it is. And I want the audience to, you know, uh, subscribe to our channel and do all of that and help us grow and raise, because this is what I bring you. This is what I bring you. If you want people like this, if you want stories like this, if you want this kind of power to enter your screens, be here. subscribe, support, make this grow, make these voices grow. It's not for me. It's for them. We're just the platform. We're just the tool where people like Lyubim can come and get a leg up and climb so that they can do their work better. I'm not benefiting from this. The only benefit we get when 1 million, 5 million, 10 million people watch this is hopefully 10% of those are going to give $5 to Lyubim each. And that adds up to all the money Lyubim needs to make changes in the world. So that's why I care for you to subscribe. That's why I care for you to watch. That's why I care for you to go in the links below and click on wingsforheroes.org and go there and do something. It's not so that I can get a deal like Joe Rogan. I don't care for that. If I wanted that, I had my fund. I still have clients who tell me come back. I can go do that. I can be in a yacht in 6 months if I wanted it. That's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I hope the audience can appreciate that. And we're putting all of Lyubim's info down there. The book as well. All his proceeds go to charity. Wingsforheroes.org. We're putting that down there as well. And we're going to be supporting how we can. We'll be in touch with Lyubim to see what we can do, how we can grow this to help him. So stay in touch, stay connected so that we can bring you the next stage and we can hopefully help as many veterans as we rightfully should and are bound to through that social contract. We're here to help change the world together. I'm Ali Horia.